what's up, everybody? I'm Doug.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And this is Good Suffering. Now, on the show, we normally talk about a film that I've seen.
But I haven't.
But before we do that, we do a little bit of horror news.
What's that? Did you say horror news?
I did.
I'm changing it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were leading into the thing.
No.
Do it for your old time's sake.
Okay. Do it again. Give it to me again.
Okay. But before we do that, we normally do a little bit of horror news.
Horror news.
Nope, I still hate it.
Gosh. Dang it.
Okay, so let's start off. Hot Topic.
Ooh,
One
I
of
love
my
Hot Topic.
one of my favorite stores from years past is doing some Halloween eyeshadows, doing a palette from Nightmare on Elm Street and a palette from Friday the 13th. And each color is going to be individually named and themed after something from the series. And that's going to be pretty neat.
Yeah, share this, and if it gets, we'll tweet something out that says if this gets 100 retweets, we'll do a video tutorial on how to do your eyeshadow.
Ooh, yeah.
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 I don't know, just thought of it. That sounds fun.
That sounds fun. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. On you, right?
It's purely all of the palettes.
No, we're gonna do that's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. Get on our Twitter at @good_suffering. If we get 100 likes, let's just do likes.
Just likes?
Likes and retweets combined.
Okay, if it adds up to 100.
If it adds up to 100, we're gonna put all of the colors one by one onto Lorenzo.
Yep.
His eyes.
My eyes, yeah, for eyeshadow.
Yeah.
All right, there it is.
Next, Turner Classic Movies has announced their October horror programming, which was my favorite thing from last year. I think it's better than AMC or like Freeform, formerly ABC Family.
Yeah.
I think they just do some really great stuff. I'm excited personally to watch for the first time Todd Browning's The Unknown, Wes Craven's Deadly Friend, Demon Seed, Dracula, Prince of Darkness, Roman Polanski's The Fearless Vampire Killers, which is like a big blind spot in my Polanski filmography, F.W. Murnau's Faust, Curse of the Cat People, The Bad Seed, and Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, which was the follow-up to Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Okay.
Robert Aldrich also directed both of those. Off of what's coming up, I want to recommend to people some real classics that they have coming up. Some really, really great films. News for Act 2 is playing. Dreamscape, Phantom Carriage, Eyes Without a Face, which also stars Miss Toller from Suspiria today. Tanner.
God. That's just, yeah.
Yeah. Diabolique, which is, one of my favorite old horror movies. I think that it is one of those films that you just show somebody when somebody says that old horror can't be genuinely scary. The original Village of the Damned, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Island of Lost Souls, which is like from 1932, is a great pre-code horror film. Super great effects, especially for the 30s. The original Fly with Vincent Price, which is of course a classic. The original Cat People, Carnival of Souls, one of my favorite films of all time, Black Sabbath, Mario Bava's Black Sabbath, which I love and I hope one day we can do for the show because it's a fucking masterpiece. And also an anthology film. House on Haunted Hill, House of Wax, the original House of Wax, not the Paris Hilton one. Not the Paris Hilton one. Sorry, Taylor. Different Taylor. But yeah, Turner Classic Movies is really turning it up a notch. I know last year I discovered a lot of great old Japanese horror, and now I'm excited to see some more American stuff, especially like I didn't know I'd be watching a Wes Craven movie I've never seen. So
yeah, this is already sounding much more interesting than AMC's stuff.
Yeah, AMC just does the fucking Halloween, marathons over and over and over again. It's like, how many times can I goddamn watch Halloween 5?
We said that at the same time. I was gonna say, how many times can you watch like the Godfather series? Like they push that out all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with horror. Same thing with like ABC Family with Harry Potter. It's like
they do Harry Potter and they do Hocus Pocus all the time too, which is admittedly a great movie, but like
but
Sci-Fi does like Nightmare on Elm Street marathons all the time. It's just like it's cool, it's a marathon, but those are movies I've seen all the fucking time. Right. Like Turner Classic Movies is bringing me shit. You know what I mean?
You know who used to do really good horror stuff? I don't know if they still do it. I don't think I have the channel anymore, but the IFC channel used to be pretty good about that. Just putting on some cool marathons in general.
I learned a lot of movies through there, like Bully and like a few movies that I really, really love that I saw for the first time on IFC.
When I would watch IFC religiously back when like Portlandia was still on, I saw that there were a lot of there were always marathons for various types of movies, but they always had like a horror thing going on. I don't know if it was like a weekly thing, but yeah, hopefully that's still going on.
Yeah. For It Chapter 2, they announced that the Ritual of Chud, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, it's got an umlaut over the U, is going to be an aspect of it. That's one of the weirdest aspects of the book. That's where, the people talk about in It, there's like a giant turtle in like dreams, like a turtle in like outer space and shit. No, you never heard that?
No.
Okay. Well, basically it's how they defeat Pennywise. And it's basically like almost like a battle of like the minds, like thought, and it's like who's got the stronger will? Is it like the child's imagination, or is it like Pennywise being like this like demonic otherworldly figure and his like will to live? And that's going to play into the next film, though it didn't play into this one. You ever see that episode of Always Sunny? It's actually in a couple where you see like a giant turtle floating and somebody says like, oh, we could all just be in like a giant turtle's dream. It's in like the season 9 finale, maybe season 10. Do you ever see where they do the ass blasters or whatever they call it, where it's like the Mac,
where they trick Mac into like
being like part of a cult?
Yeah.
You know how at the end you see the giant turtle floating?
Yeah.
That's an It reference.
This sounds like something else. I'll have to come back and maybe say on the next episode what
yeah.
reminds me of.
Yeah, but no, it's a super weird thing about the book that's going to be included, which is really cool.
So it's like a fight scene.
Essentially, it's like a fight in the mind. It's not like a battle. You know what I mean? Like as in like punches and kicks.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I'm interested to see how it translates.
Would that imply,
because it's an aspect of the 1990 movie too.
Would that imply then that Chapter 2 would be the last one? Or
I mean, either way, it's got to be the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Like, would Chapter 2 be the last one? Yeah. At least based on the books. I guess maybe they could do more if they wanted. But yeah. Okay.
I mean, they could do more like as like events prior to what happens in 1 and 2. I predict that. But The Nun, which is a very divisive movie, I liked it a lot. If you heard my bonus episode, and
go check that out.
Yeah, go check
There's
that out.
There's none of me, so it's perfect.
You've been that's all you. You're the one who's been advertising it like that.
Yep.
They worldwide box office opening weekend $131 million, which is like pretty astounding.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, they did really good marketing.
Yeah,
for that movie.
Really, really heavy.
It was
marketing.
everywhere. One of their ads actually got banned.
Yeah, from YouTube. That was awesome. Yeah. It's a good ad too, man. With that, where it looks like you're. Yeah, it's great.
I don't think it would fool anyone, but I mean, shit. Apparently, it was enough for it to get pulled. So yeah, they were. That doesn't surprise me. Great marketing.
No. Thriller is getting an IMAX 3D release for the first week ahead of House with the Clock in Its Walls when it comes out. You heard about that movie with Jack Black?
Yeah.
Isn't that Robert Rodriguez? If you go see it no, it's Eli Roth, which is crazy.
I always combine them two together. I don't know why.
Oh my god. But yeah, they're I guess because House with the Clock in Its Walls is made by Amblin, which is Steven Spielberg's company. I don't know how much they have to do with the original Thriller, but it sounds like if anybody was going to do it, it would have been Steven Spielberg. So yeah, if you go see House with the Clock in Its Walls in IMAX. During its first week, you get Thriller in 3D in IMAX ahead of it.
The music video.
All of Thriller. I'm gonna be there opening night for that. Man.
Oh, like the full length, like
the whole sweet. Fucking John Landis directed motherfucker.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
You should go to that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm so down. I'll leave after that.
Let's go.
No, I won't. I like Eli Roth a lot, even though
I'm excited for this movie. It looks like it would be like a Goosebumps episode or something.
Yeah, it did. But I'll admit I haven't seen like anything. I've seen like photos. I've seen like I think some of like the press junket stuff. I don't know who I follow. I follow Eli Roth on Instagram. That's why I've been seeing so much of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I haven't seen anything. So I can go into that blind. That'd be fun.
Yeah, sweet. Hell yeah. We're done with horror news, but I'd like to just shout out a group on Facebook. You know us here at Good Suffering. We love the dichotomy of memes and horror. And there's a great new page called A Nightmare on Meme Street: horror shitposting. That is fantastic. I still have to add you to it, but I want to shout it out on here because it's just like it's fun. It's a good page. It's a good group rather on Facebook. But yeah, that's really it for our horror news. We check out our haunt reviews coming soon. We're going to our first haunt next weekend. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube. We're going to be doing a lot of content on there coming up. We've got a real busy September and October coming up for the Halloween season. And then we're going to have a busy Christmas, too, because Christmas and horror go together like milk and cookies. Or like peanut butter and pickles, if you're me.
That's disgusting.
So today we're talking about Dario Argento's 1977 self-described acid trip on celluloid, Suspiria. And I don't know if words can do this movie justice. I don't know if the words within the movie can do the movie justice. Because it's just such a kind of an experience of film.
The words, you don't know if the words within the movie.
Does that make sense?
Can do it just. Well, I have a lot to say about that, I guess.
Okay.
But let's not jump.
He hated it. He hated it.
Oh, my God. Let's not jump.
Okay, all right. We should jump to the IMDb synopsis.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
IMDb. We're giving them so much free advertising.
They
do. Would never pay us because like they're gonna
Shudder too. Like damn.
Both of them are like these guys are gonna keep doing it for free.
Any attempt to monetize is just gonna be thwarted by like you guys like us anyway. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, really. But Lisa, what about those mattresses? We don't talk about that enough. So,
True.
So sponsor the show.
Yeah. Casper Purple.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's audible.com.
All right. So Suspiria's IMDb bio, or bio, whatever. An American newcomer to a prestigious German ballet academy comes to realize that the school is a front for something sinister amid a series of grisly murders. First of all, that's a mouthful.
That's like the longest one that we've encountered so far.
Yeah.
Oh.
And as long as it is, I feel like it's whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't really. If I read that, I wouldn't feel so inclined to watch the movie.
Yeah. They should just say it's Susie and her Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That would be it.
Yeah.
With a lot of blood. A lot of blood.
Yeah. Blood Poncho. That's the name of a horror movie. There we go. We're making Blood Poncho.
Blood Poncho?
Blood Poncho.
I thought it was going to be our experimental hardcore album.
That works too. Shit. So what'd you think of it?
Okay, so okay, well, let's go back to what you said about the words doing justice, right? I don't know what words in this movie would do anything at all for this movie on behalf of this movie.
On behalf of anything.
Yeah, so to backtrack a little bit, I think we talked quite a bit about how excited we are for the remake from Luca Guadagnino, right?
Yeah. And Tom York.
Yes, Tom York scoring it, which I can't wait to listen to. Yeah, and I got to watch the trailer afterwards, but beforehand I had seen stills. I had seen like maybe just like I think like teasers. Yeah, I had seen the teaser, but not the full trailer. So I was kind of going into that aesthetic, that kind of mood. And I knew already that the original 1977 is completely different.
Starkly different, even by
Very,
like the
very
2.5 minutes that we've seen so far of
Right.
Suspiria.
Especially with all the neon colors, the use of colors.
Right.
So I knew it was just going to be a different movie altogether. I just didn't know it was literally going to be a different movie. It doesn't look anything alike. Right. And I don't think it messed with my expectations. I just don't think I was expecting so little focus on story, on words, on character, really. Like, there's not much focus on that. So it's very visually heavy. Like that's what you're watching this movie for. Absolutely 100% watching this movie for the visual aspects, maybe even the trippiness of it. Doesn't mean I hate it. It doesn't mean I didn't like the movie. I didn't not enjoy it. But it was a very similar experience to watching Demons with you for the first time. I feel like it wasn't until the end that I realized maybe I shouldn't have been trying to figure out the story the whole time.
Right. Yeah. Just like that's the thing is like Italian horror for the most part is kind of split up into like two little groups. There's like films like Suspiria and Demons and Lucio Fulci's work, where, plot really kind of takes a back seat to just like the visuals and just kind of the weird, surreal aspects of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And even within that, like there are two schools of thought, like as like I guess critics and as viewers, where you can look at that as going, oh well, none of them had like real writing chops, so they were covering it up. Or you can look at that as like that's a stylistic choice because as directors, they didn't really care about telling a story as much as they cared about putting images on screen. You know what I mean? They almost looked at themselves as like painters,
Right.
But the other side of that is the really story-based giallo film, which is a mixture of like a police procedural and a slasher film. And that's what Dario Argento is actually mostly known for. Movies like Bird in the Crystal Plumage and Deep Red and films like that. And there's like tons of other directors who do that kind of style. That's like when I first learned about like Italian genre of filmmaking, I learned a lot about, giallos, and I thought that was all there was to it, which is why I dove deep into movies like Demons and Suspiria and Dario Argento's other film like Inferno and et cetera,
Right,
because
which
is the sequel, which I kind of like a little bit more
You
than
like the
this.
sequel?
I do. I
Oh,
really love Inferno.
Mm.
I love this movie too. It's really great, and like I've watched it like 5 times in the past 2 weeks for this. Like, or well, the first time wasn't for this, but I watched it a lot recently, and like I really have come to appreciate it now that I've seen it in like full form from this like Synapse release, which is gorgeous. Like you consider yourself lucky to have seen it this way for the first time, because people who saw it on like Laserdisc or VHS or something really didn't get the experience that you did.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah, I
seeing
bet.
it on a bigger screen or anything like that, like since like the initial 35 millimeter run.
It did look great, I gotta say.
Oh yeah, it's a gorgeous film.
Yeah.
It's like really like there's nothing like it out there. You know what I mean? And it's weird because there's not a lot of directors who chased that, like trying to make a Suspiria copy. Like there's a lot of like whenever you look at stuff like, especially like in modern times, you look at like we live in like a post-drive world, so everybody's doing like neon.
Yeah.
But that's not neon. You know what I mean? There's some kind of surreal, like there's some quality to it that separates it from any other like really visual and color forward film. I guess like I would compare it to something like Wizard of Oz, almost something like that, where there's just like
Right.
I guess that's where people get like kind of the Technicolor kind of
Yeah.
thing from it, even though this wasn't a Technicolor shot movie.
Yeah. A lot of the lights or the light changes, it just felt like a very experimental like play that we were watching something like in a theater. You and I got to watch it together actually for a second time.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
A couple days ago, and we blew off the podcast just to watch it.
Yeah, I came in. You were finishing the movie, so I finished it with you.
I finished it as in like the last, like
what, like
hour and 20.
80
Yeah.
But we by the way, we didn't spoil the show. We didn't really talk about it. I will admit that, damn it, Doug tried his damnedest to get me to talk about it. He certainly didn't shut up about it, so I knew how he felt about it. But we didn't spoil the fun of the show.
Well.
But anyway, yeah, so we were just like literally bursting out laughing when the lights would kind of like a light switch would turn off. And then all of a sudden, like in the hall, right, when they're like looks like they're in a gymnasium,
yeah, when
the
they
lights
after
come
the
up
maggots,
and it's just red.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or when later on in the movie when Susie passes out on her friend, her name escapes me, the one who dies in the barbed wire. Sarah.
Yeah.
And she shuts the lights out and everything just goes bright
Like,
green.
it's
It's like
green.
brighter than it was before.
Yeah, it's like how is
Who sleeps like
that
that? Like,
signifies nighttime?
Yeah.
And they're sleeping. There's night. It's like it's supposed to be signifying what time of day it is, I guess.
Right.
We got so used to a dark kind of blue being setting the mood for like a nighttime shot, even if it's outdoors, like you don't need to see the moon, you don't need to see stars. If you see that someone's like outside a building and the filter is like a dark blue, you can assume it's nighttime. This movie just totally spins that on its head. It doesn't care what's convention in filmmaking. It just adds color to everything, and any chance it can get, it puts color in it.
even when it's not in such a surreal way, you look at like when Susie goes to Olga's apartment, when they don't have her room ready for her,
Right.
and they just have that shot of her painting her nails amongst all that like stark white and then just the red paint. That's great. And like even like all of the set pieces and whatnot, like when she first walks in, there's those like blue velvet walls in like the hall, or like Susie's wallpaper with like that real intricate black and white, like kind of, I think it was like floral design. It's just like, there's not a single moment that's like not visually arresting and assaulting. And it's like, even when the blind piano player is killed in the square, you know what I mean? What they make, you know, what they lack in color, they make up for with like visual flair, with shadows bouncing off the buildings, and with like that swooping cameras, and you know, they add, this whole movie has like this whole other layer of like sound to it. You know what I mean? Where they're just like, you can't really discern between score and like sound effects,
right?
And it's just like there's even the quiet moments of this movie, even when you're supposed to catch your breath. Like, there's still just, like, so much to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's funny is that it's not necessarily, like, framing that's particularly beautiful. There's no, like, amazing shot, necessarily. At least not too many. The first kill with, like, you know, the girl, like, hanging from, like, the ceiling, you know, and her getting stuck in the noose, that was a crazy shot. That was awesome.
Even before that, when she's looking out the window and you could see the whole house and she's just in the window, I paused on that earlier today to get up and go do something. And I just, like, you know, I just paused where I was, and I was like, oh, wow, I just landed on, like, a really beautiful shot.
But there aren't too many, though. I think most of it just has come down to lighting, and it comes down to design.
And yeah, like, set design and, you know, what they did, like, with, you know, the three, you know, the primary colors that they use.
Right.
And whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. But all that to say, though, the writing just severely lacks. And I also wanted to mention...
Nobody's saying that this is, like, you know... No, there's nobody out here saying, like, this is, you know... the most heady.
It's not.
You know, it's not. There's no, you know.
And even the writer of the remake, he has gone on to say that he's not a big fan of this original movie, which is very controversial to say. I'm sure he like alienates a lot of people by saying that. Yeah. But I think his critique is valid. He's literally just saying the same thing. He's like, I don't think it's an important, or not important. That may be too heavy of a word, but the narrative isn't there.
Right.
It's not really a narrative important movie.
Right.
But
you'll find that a lot of Italian films like that. You know what I mean?
Demons.
Hey,
Demons was wild.
Yeah.
I was trying to follow it. I'm like, I don't get what's going on. I'm just watching.
Yeah, you just got to give up. You know what I mean? You just got to take what's happening. There's, you know, Sam Shepard?
Yeah.
Playwright, right?
Among other things.
Right. Yeah. He said something that, like, the feeling of, like, that you have to tie every loose end by the end of a story is like the enemy of creativity.
I love Sam Shepard. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Like, and I think that's so true. And I think this is such an example.
Yeah, he had pretty trippy plays too. Pretty like I wouldn't say non-linear necessarily, but like, yeah, I guess for the most part. I mean, I'm not very well read of Sam Shepard, but what I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Does he have films? I only know him as a playwright.
Did he direct films or like?
Like, does he? Yeah. Did he?
That's the thing. That's what I said. Like, of many things. Like, he did a lot of shit. Like, he was just always working. Yeah. And he dated Patti Smith, I believe.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure they dated. Yeah.
Hey.
Such a cool guy. So interesting. We could do a whole podcast on Sam Shepard.
Yeah. We could do a whole podcast on Patti Smith.
Yeah, we could.
But I want to talk to you about how Nazism ties into this film.
Oh, here we go.
Oh my God.
Here we freaking go.
Well, I mean, first off, the obvious link would be that, you know, Nazism and occultism kind of have like ties.
Do they?
Well, that's new to me. You know, like Nazism, you know, and especially Hitler was really interested in the occult and an alternative religion and things like that.
Was he?
Yeah.
Really?
Did you not know that?
No, this would have been perfect to know when we were writing the script for like the senior thesis I worked on.
Oh, well.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go on. Go watch that movie, by the way. I think it's still on YouTube. Hellbent.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But though, you know, a lot of the indoor, you know, scenes are shot on set, and the outside of the Tanz Academy is a set. A lot of the film was shot in Munich. They used a lot of locations that have Nazi ties, I guess.
Yeah,
I would say I don't want to lean into this movie being like, no, this is like a fascist movie, and that's almost the point that I'm trying to make, is the opposite point.
I don't know, because you were seeing a case altogether different.
The airport in the beginning was designed and built in 1939 by a Nazi architect. The Black Woods, which she travels through in the beginning, Hitler had one of his main bunkers there in the Schwarzwoods.
Right.
The Hofbrauhaus, where they see the dance scene with the dancers and the kind of polka-y band, right?
Yeah.
That's where Hitler gave his first political speech.
Oh.
The scene where the dog mall takes place.
That square.
That square is where Nazis did book burnings. The Nazi administration building was. Hitler gave a lot of speeches there.
They burnt Nike products.
Yeah. And the pool scene was actually in a gymnasium bathhouse that Hitler frequented before he, was a political figure, because his flat didn't have a bathroom. And all those were, like, using those locations were conscious choices by Dario Argento, because he knew that people who knew that would be very uncomfortable, that would add a layer of discomfort to the film.
Yeah.
But there's no ties to the movie itself. You know what I mean? There's no
to
real
the locations necessarily.
to the locations or to the narrative.
Well,
Nazism. So
okay, go on. I'm sorry.
Which kind of just is a good example of how Italian horror works, where it's just like, fuck it, do it because it's weird. It makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why did there need to be like a maggot scene? You know what I mean? Why did there need to be certain things in demons? You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter to like an overall story, and like, I guess, conventional, storytelling ideas would tell you to lean away from those things, but they just, lean into them.
That maggot scene was so unnecessary.
Oh, it's so good.
I'm stuck on that. Yeah.
I think they used actually like Rice Krispies. When they fall into the hair, they don't use real maggots. I think they like just drop like Rice Krispies or something into their hair.
But those are real maggots.
Oh
like,
yeah, when you see anything
floor.
Wiggling and stuff.
Yeah, like that was a lot.
Yeah.
Imagine cleaning that up.
Oof.
But you're saying that like it doesn't necessarily tie in, like the whole Nazism. It doesn't tie into the movie. But you do hate, what is her name? Miss Tanner.
Miss Tanner. Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's a good example of some Nazism there too.
You were raving. You were saying like this. You hate her for one.
Oh,
thing.
I fucking hate her.
And one of the reasons why
I
you hate her, like, I don't know if is why you hate her. I imagine it might be, but you said that she's a freaking Nazi.
No, I said Nazi bitch.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, Nazi. Yeah. She's a Nazi bitch.
Yeah. So, and I am on the other side. I'm defending her as a character, necessarily. I don't hate her.
Really?
I think she's great.
She's incredibly predatory. She's, I read some critique, and I heard in either one of the commentaries or one of the special features that like there's almost like a lesbian aspect to it, like a predatory older lesbian aspect to it. Like she's sizing up the girls, for like prey, and also like,
No, I disagree wholeheartedly. I like the character. I like the archetype of.
She's got that smile where it's like always on the edge of rage.
It's great.
Like a character like that is great, but
but
I hate her. You're supposed to hate her.
I didn't hate her.
Do you have some kind of fetish you want to tell me about?
I don't know. Maybe I need to.
I like librarians. I don't. Yeah, you might need to
cool.
speak to somebody.
Probably. I should.
Yeah.
But no, I thought that she was just really interesting. I don't know. I like characters that are like really strict. Like she was making wow, her name's not Sarah.
Susie,
yeah,
Susie Banyan.
Yeah, she
got a different in the Italian. Sorry to cut you off, but in like the Italian like audio mix, they use a different name, like Susie something else, like with a B, like Banner or no, like Bayon or I don't know, some kind of different.
When they dub it in Italian, you're saying?
Yeah.
But anyway, Miss Tanner, I just think was just so cool. Like I like characters that are like really like teachers like that are strict, like drill sergeant kind of characters. Like even the drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket. I don't hate that guy at all. I love that character. I think he's an awesome character, and I felt that same kind of way.
What about like Nurse Ratched?
No, she sucks.
Then how do you like? Oh my!
No, she's evil.
So is this
evil.
one?
How is this one evil?
She's a witch.
Okay, what does she do?
She watches as Susie is like like falling apart, and she's just pushing her harder and harder to dance.
Sometimes people are just like being
with that evil fucking smile.
Sometimes people are just like maybe too shy. You gotta break them out of that.
Fuck you.
If you're going to this prestigious school and you're on the first day, she says this is the first time I'm going to get to see you dance, and you're going to tell me you can't? Absolutely not. Go ahead, go for it. And if you pass
how do you even say that within the context of having seen the entire film and knowing that she is part of the witch conspiracy?
She is part of it, of course.
The coven.
That's fine. I get that. I just don't care.
You get that? Oh my god. Oh my God.
I think she's an innocent one. I think she's innocent and part of the coven. I feel like she's part of the coven against her will. She really wants to run a good school. She's very serious about it, about dance, but she's unfortunately got ties to this coven. That's my backstory for Miss Tanner. But you want to call her a Nazi bitch or whatever.
She's a fucking
You want to
Nazi
paint her as
bitch.
two-dimensional. Meanwhile, she's got a hell of a backstory that you don't even care to know about. That I came up with.
That you came up with, yeah. To defend your awful point, your awful hot take on our podcast.
This has been Lorenzo's Hot Take.
Yeah. There's one an episode, it seems like. Oh, God. Let's talk about that score.
Sure.
Let's talk about Goblin, man.
Yeah.
I mean, because now you've seen 2 Italian horror movies,
Mm-hmm.
both with Dario Argento ties, because he produced Demons,
Right.
and both have scores from Claudio Simonetti / the band Goblin.
Oh, right. I keep forgetting that they did the same score. They did the score for both.
They did a lot of. It's like them and like Fabio Frizzi, like are the 2 big ones.
The Demons one's pretty, in fact, startlingly different.
Well,
than
yeah,
this
they all
one.
are. I mean, if you listen to like their work on like Deep Red or any of the other films that they worked on, like
I feel like that's kind of why I didn't really realize that they're the same band.
Yeah.
Because that one's kind of the Demons one is
synthy
more
proggy, like it's all kind of the same.
But I feel like the Demons
maybe
one's
'cause
kind of like
Demons-
harder, like a little bit more rock.
Maybe because it's also. I mean, yeah, but also like because there's so much like other music in Demons, so many like U.S. like glam metal hits
Yeah.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
Pretty sure like if it's not Motley Crue on there, then it's like Motley Crue knockoffs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like Dokken.
Yeah, something like that. I think Dokken is on the.
Yeah, I just remember Dokken doing like what Friday? No,
No, they
Nightmare
did.
on Elm
They did
Street
3. Yeah.
yeah.
We're the Dream Warriors. Yeah.
No, so the score with this one is really, really repetitive, and I'm not saying that like as a criticism. It just is, and I think it adds to that whole nightmare dreamscape aspect. Like you just feel like you're walking in a circle. You know that something ominous is going on the whole time, and there's constant clear warnings, aka the soundtrack, among other things. But you just can't break up. You can't break out of it.
It's very driving. It just like pushes it forward in a weird way that I don't see in a lot of other, horror movies, like or movies in general, where it's just like the same thing over and over and over and over. And the way they like cut in and out of it is great too. Like in the airport.
The airport part, that was hilarious. That's like something out of a comedy.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
it's so great.
it just cuts. Like the music's playing as she's walking, and the camera's on her. The camera cuts to the doors. Music's done. It goes back and forth between music playing, like, oh, ominous music, and then nothing. Just that juxtaposition is hilarious.
It's there's a few other moments like that, and maybe not with the music, but like when she says like Susie, they're witches, and like it's just like it blacks out. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For no reason.
It's so good.
Like
It's
it fades
ridiculous.
out and then it goes right back to the same scene. There's no time lapse. There's no nothing. It's the same scene. And yeah, the music does cut out at one point. When
it's not even like that's the moment where she passes out, because it comes back and then you see her like physically pass out.
Right.
It's fantastic.
It's just for no reason though.
It's
like
so
literally
good.
for no reason.
It's great. It's like
Okay, so let me get this straight then. You can, because this movie's pretty loved for the most part. At least the people that love it, like it seems like they're really big on it. Like they think it's, you, for instance, think this is a great, huge accomplishment.
oh yeah,
Right. Although it's not your favorite of Argento.
no. I think this is a bigger accomplishment than my favorite, though. I think this might be his objectively best work, but I just like Inferno a whole lot.
I see.
Especially like the end scene of that. We'll get to Inferno one day.
That's fair.
But
yeah. So, but all of that is based on this story where there isn't much story. It's a fever dream.
This itself is based on a whole idea, on another story, on a couple of stories actually.
What do you mean? It was compiled from other fragments of stories, or
yeah,
like
and the way
myths,
that Suspiria and Inferno and Mother of Tears tied together is all based on like the work of a writer. I'm blanking on his name, Thomas Quigley or something like that. Thomas O something maybe, I don't know.
But that's something that really interests me. I mean, like I feel like a lot of what I've come to realize horror is about, or at least what really engages me, is the story behind it, is the mystery, is the adventure. How can you differentiate this, right? Something that's kind of more of a visual aspect from something that's kind of more jump scary. Maybe like you know what I mean? Like I know one's kind of a gimmick and another is just visual, but where does the narrative come in? Where does the horror come in? Does that make any sense?
No.
How do I ask this? I love doing this show and seeing cool stories that are not just like, pure horror in your face. Like there's a story behind it.
Okay.
There isn't a story behind this.
It sounds like there's it sounds like you're having an issue with the lack of narrative. That just like seems like the base of it.
I don't know. I don't get what makes this so revered.
It's the visuals and it's the a lot of people come to horror, including myself, to see things they can't really see elsewhere.
Mm.
You know what I mean? To see interesting things. That's why I hunt out, older kind of obscure stuff, because in all those movies you see something that you never have before. You know what I mean?
Right.
I showed my friend not necessarily a horror movie, but like Ninja 3, because Ninja 3: The Domination is essentially about a like an aerobics instructor who gets possessed by an evil ninja and then gets exorcised by a good ninja to get the bad ninja's soul out of her. And it's not necessarily a great movie. It's not necessarily the most narratively sound, but you're seeing something you can't see elsewhere. And that's kind of the draw. And it's also just gorgeous. You know what I mean? Like this is genuinely like this is an achievement of cinematography.
Yeah, no, it is. It is
you might
very pleasing to the
be
eye,
able to understand it more as you see some more Italian stuff and see some more. I was really eager to see what you thought of this because, I think this is our first like international title that we've picked, or maybe our second.
Doesn't the first one that we did, doesn't that count?
Dead Alive? It's New Zealand, but I mean like different language, different culture to like a real intense degree.
Yeah, no, this is
and Dead Alive was really inspired by a lot of American films anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, this is aside from Dead Alive, I don't think we've done any other foreign.
Before we
films.
recorded, I mentioned that like two of Argento's heroes are Mario Bava and Fritz Lang, who's German. So this is definitely a guy who is incredibly inspired by places other than the United States.
Yeah.
And then he, in turn inspires guys like Carpenter. Like you look at like the score for Halloween, which comes out a year after this, and you look at how much Goblin is an influence with like the proggy like time signatures and the synth aspect of it. This had such an effect, and there's still people who show up to screenings of this film without ever having seen it. This is a film that's got like a myth behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's definitely it's an experience.
You know what? I think I've gathered my thoughts on what I was trying to say before.
Okay.
I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around what makes a horror film. I feel like a lot of this show, I'm being educated in this show. We've said that numerous times throughout various episodes.
Sure.
So I think maybe even just without me knowing, I'm just trying to put together like my own thesis on what makes horror films, what makes them effective, how to make one. I'm always thinking about like how could I use this kind of work.
It's not a cut and dry formula. You know what I mean? Horror, sci-fi, anything in that realm is all just an extension of fantasy. We wrap this up in the idea of the genre film and like the genre, art. Mm-hmm. So you're really just, it's an extension of fantasy. And this is just as legitimate a horror movie as like something like The Shining or something like Jaws or Paranormal Activity, which are all, three different, in their own aspects. Right. There's no cut and dry way to make it. You know what I mean? And it's mostly just, I guess like a threat, like some sort of life-threatening aspect, or I don't even want to put that in there. You know what I mean? Horror is just horror, and everybody's got a pretty subjective view on what horror is. Yeah. There are people who wouldn't call this horror because they're not scared. There's people who don't call movies like The Nun a horror movie because they're not scared. People go, it's a horror movie, you're supposed to be scared. They won't watch movies like The Witch. You know what I mean? They won't watch movies like Hereditary because they don't think that they're scary. There are people who only think horror is jump scares. There are people who think horror is anything but jump scares. Yeah. People who need it to relate to real life in a really intense way, or people who don't want it to relate to life, Yeah. And all of that are just different aspects of the overarching idea of horror.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. And I think maybe I'm leaning more towards like, things like Hereditary or The Witch. or The Shining, because The Shining was one of the first horror movies that I ever like really approached. Aside from like Halloween, I gave that like an honest try and actually fell in love with it. The Shining was another movie that I really liked. And I remember when I would tell people like that, like, oh, what's your, like, your favorite horror movie? Like, you know, what kinds of horror movies you like? I would just say The Shining because I really didn't watch many others, but I liked the story behind it. I love the progression. I love watching the characters. So maybe that's what got me predisposed to what I think horror is. Seeing stuff like demons was like weird. Like it was like it altered like my perception of what horror could be. This furthered that like by a fucking mile. Like this, I feel like I have no idea what horror could possibly be because of something like this. It's just such a
I can't
strange
wait
movie.
to get you into like some of the weirder older Japanese stuff, like Houseu, and like I've got some ones that are totally gonna blow you, blow this out of the water as far as like weird, surreal.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, hell yeah, we're gonna change your perception
Yeah,
of the genre, man. I as a side note, I want to say, isn't it funny? I guess this is okay to talk about because it's just a horror podcast, but. Isn't it funny how like it's just okay to say The Shining is like your favorite horror movie? It feels like such a legitimate thing. Like nobody can fuck with that. You know what I mean? Like my whole life, like you could say The Shining and nobody's gonna go, oh no, that's dumb. It's almost like weirdly universally loved even by people who've like never seen it. Like it feels like a super legit answer. When in reality, it's kind of a weird and divisive film that was like hated when it came out.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just kind of, talking about The Shining because I love it so much. But it feels like it's such a weird thing. You know what I mean? Like, so no matter what age you are, like, if you like The Shining, it's like you get a couple of cool points thrown your way. You know what I mean? But if you say something like Paranormal Activity, if you say something like Friday the 13th, like, you get people who go, oh, that's dumb. Or I saw that movie. It was really stupid.
Well, it's a very, very iconic movie. Like, people, like, even say, like, here's Johnny and know exactly what that is.
Well, I mean, because that's a thing. It. Well, because that's a, like a Johnny Carson thing.
They don't know that because of Johnny Carson. They know that because of The Shining.
You're right, but, like, it's still, I mean?
Like the Jack Nicholson character, like, he's just as much of, like, an icon as, like, Jason is. You know, like, wow, I'm blanking on his name.
Freddy?
No, fucking Jack Nicholson's character in The Shining.
Oh, Jack Torrance.
Torrance. I even knew it was Jack. I'm trying to think of Torrance. Yeah, so Jack Torrance, like he's just as much of a staple and icon in film overall, and let alone with like other horror icons. I mean, I think it's just in there. It's solidified. Like if someone says like, oh, like what do you think is one of the best movies of all time, or what's one of your favorite movies? Someone says The Godfather. You're like, okay, maybe you personally, Doug, don't agree with it, but that's a legitimate answer because it's just canon. It's
the right answer is Godfather Part 2.
Godfather Part 2 is not compared to the first one, but anyway, you know what I mean. You know what I'm getting at. So The Shining just is there. Like it's a cornerstone among other great movies. It's canon.
Okay.
But Paranormal Activity, I like to think it will be one day too.
I hope.
To be honest.
I mean, I don't know. I've championed that movie since it came out.
People that say that it's trash are just
we'll look back on it more
bored
fondly.
or tired of the found footage stuff. That's all it is.
We'll look back on it more fondly once we forget the bad found footage entries. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I love this movie. I think it's so great. It really had an effect on me. But anyway, it gets back to Suspiria.
Okay. I want to talk about the lack of sexuality in this movie.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I mean, initially this was supposed to be a 12 and 13-year-old girls. Not in the movie. They're they become like late teenagers. That's really where you're supposed to see like 17, 18, 19.
Wait. So they're say that again. So they're 12.
In the original script, they're supposed to be like 12 or 13.
Okay, but in the actual movie,
they're like
to be
imagine
like
17 to 19, like
right.
late teens, right?
Okay.
So you look at them and they're 17, 18, 19. They're they're right. They're out of puberty, but they're still very sexual. They are kind of kept away, but there's even like that he's kind of lanky, but that attractive guy who kind of befriends Susie.
Or he even blows her a kiss.
Yeah, but also he kind of like does a weird wave there. A lot of people assume that character to be gay, but
okay.
you would think that there would even be some kind of like lesbian act. There would be some sort of sexuality in the film. And there's just not. It's almost interestingly like it ties into like Texas Chainsaw Massacre in that way, where like it totally just like subverts, sexual politics.
I mean, not to like fucking split hairs, but Texas did have that one.
It does that shot, but yeah, that's more of a male gaze thing than a narrative thing.
But yeah, there's none of that, not even remotely in this movie, in Suspiria.
Which is weird because Italian horror and Italian film in general is really heavy on the sexuality, and all of Argento's films prior, and I'm pretty sure after this, maybe with the save for like Phenomena, really like have a sexual aspect to it, or at least like a very gratuitous tit shot, something like that.
I wonder if then we can like try to interpret it as something to do with preserving that kind of innocence, right? And then like the whole demon aspect, the whole occult is what's going to be tainting or deflowering these innocent women, the young girls. I don't know. I'm coming up with this. I'm saying this on the spot because I'm thinking of also like like The Witch. To go back to stuff that we've done before. That's kind of like a similar process, except she does get liberated by the demons or by the witches, Satan and all that. Whereas this movie, like I guess she avoids it. She ends up breaking free from that. She doesn't fall into that trap.
Right. I mean, yeah, this and The Witch have pretty different views on what witches are. You know what I mean? And their place within like culture. But I don't know. The way I don't know how to dissect it. Have you ever seen Picnic at Hanging Rock?
No.
No. Or actually, the Suspiria is based on a story called Minnehaha, which is about like a school, almost like the Tanz Academy, but you send kids away like as early as like 2 or 3 years old, and it basically teaches them how to live and how to like be as part of society, but it's totally torn away from society. Like they don't have any interaction with the opposite sex, they don't have any interaction really with like actual society, but it's teaching them how to. And then at the end of the story, I haven't read it. This is just like what I've gotten from like reading about Suspiria. They just kind of put them out there in society now that they've like grown up. And I guess that aspect of it is almost like what he was trying to take and put into Suspiria, as that it is kind of an isolated situation, and like all of the men in the movie are like really ineffective, and like or like in like some. They're just like they're marginalized to some extent.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
What was that? The number that you told me, that there's like so many. How many men in this movie?
Yeah, like 90 men in the movie,
and none of them matter.
yeah. The one attractive one is gay, and then there's like a lot of old men and creepy doctors. There's the blind pianist. There's the weird Arnold Schwarzenegger looking guy who's like the servant.
Yeah, some Igor dude.
Yeah, so like a giant Igor. But like there's not even like an innocent kiss or anything like that within the film. Like there's no like charge at all at any moment, which is really interesting.
And there's even like a pool scene, as we mentioned before.
Yeah, with some nipples through a bathing suit.
Yeah.
For Sarah.
Right.
But even then, that's not shot in a way where you're supposed to be looking at that. You know what I mean?
There's some like voyeurism from the top, like when the shot is, kind of panning down and they see him, and someone's watching.
But they even do that with like in the square before the dog mauling, and even when he's trying to like leave, and he picks up his cane and his coat. I guess that almost like symbolizes like they're always watching kind of situation, which is like a different. There's a point of view of like those glowing eyes, Right. Yeah. It's almost like. It's not voyeurism to like the extent of like where we're supposed to feel bad about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not shot like a movie like Peeping Tom where we're supposed to feel implicit, or like Funny Games. You know what I mean? Where we're supposed to feel like, Yeah,
I love Funny
like we're responsible for what's happening.
Right.
It's shot in a totally detached way.
Well, to one thing about the square thing that we mentioned when we were together watching the movie, we see the shadows going over like the buildings, and it kind of looks like it's like witches on broomsticks going by. I just thought that was really cool. Just wanted to point that out.
Okay, yeah.
There's a lot of like cool parts.
What's interesting is they do that shot of the statue of the bird.
Oh,
and then they do the swoop.
Yeah.
And you hear like wings flapping.
Right.
And you're not sure if that's supposed to be witches, if that's supposed to be some sort of demon, if that's supposed to be the statue come to life, anything like that. And like I think that's just like adds another layer to like the weird, like you just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Like you never really have a full grasp.
Yeah.
There's that one lady who's always in the background who never speaks at all, She's there when they
She's
kick
the
the
one.
blind guy out. She's there when
Oh yeah, you
Susie
were like, who
peers
is
in
that?
I'm like, who the fuck is that lady?
Yeah.
She doesn't have a single. They never talk about her name.
Yeah.
They never acknowledge that she's even fucking there.
Yeah.
You know, she's just always there.
She's
And
like the woman in The Office.
yeah,
You know, the one that's just like behind like everyone.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just like you never really have a full grasp of
Yeah.
the film, and I think that
Or
adds
what
a layer
reality
to it.
is. You don't
Yeah,
know
and
what's-
that's an aspect of horror is just like this feeling of like I am not totally connected to what's happening.
Yeah.
It's just another approach to horror.
I know that you. I'm sorry.
Go-
No,
oh.
you were.
Oh, I was gonna say
Yeah.
a lot of horror, especially U.S. horror, wants you to feel it. You know what I
Mm.
mean? They want you to care about the characters, and that's where they pull their horror from.
Yeah.
They want you to, they want you engaged. They want you tense. This kind of takes the opposite approach. They want you to be almost like disoriented, and that's, I guess, maybe where it's kind of losing you and like your understanding of it.
Yeah, definitely. I can't deny that. I feel like that's probably true. One cool thing though that we actually mentioned while watching the movie, you mentioned this earlier, is like you can't tell what's the score or what's like sound effects or where it's coming from.
Mhm.
Back when they're like in the gymnasium, let's call it, and the lights just go red, and supposedly they're sleeping. There's like a lot of noise in the background before, like we hear like the director breathing or the witch breathing, right? There's just a lot of noise that you think is like part of the music, but it's not like you can't tell.
You
I was
can't
like,
tell if they hear it themselves or not.
right. I was like, how the hell can you sleep with all that noise? But maybe it's just part of the score.
And all that light.
Yeah. There's so many things like that. It's like, how do you react? How would anyone react to this in reality? Like in the very beginning, when Susie's when she's in the cab, she sees the first victim. I forget what her name is. I don't know if she has a name. I can't remember. She sees her
the one running.
running in the woods.
She does have a name. I forgot.
But
fuck.
she sees her running in the woods. She doesn't say a damn thing to the cab driver. She doesn't say, "Hey, let's stop. Like, let's do something."
Let's figure out why she just left screaming and running
Right.
through the woods.
Or she's like literally running
But-
from the place that she's
but-
going to.
But yet, the reason why she knows about the blue iris at the end is because of what she hears mumbling under her breath as she leaves
Right.
the academy.
Yeah.
It's,
There's just nothing really makes sense.
there's an interesting debate on at what point do you think this movie starts being like really dreamlike? You know what I mean?
I think as soon as she's like leaves the airport, because I think that's like the whole significance of that cut back and forth, having the music play as she's looking at the doors. I feel like that's the gateway.
Into like
Everything.
that weird world.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
even
and
the
you
cab driver
see-
was a weirdo.
Yeah, the cab driver, but you see those two detectives there at the beginning, and they're almost like remnants of like the normal world. And you get these little tastes, like even like the dance hall thing.
Right.
Those are little
Oh, yeah, yeah.
tastes of like the real world, and she's just kind of living in this like surrealist nightmare.
Yeah.
You notice they don't dance much in this movie.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. I love that. Like in The Shining, like he's hired to do work at the hotel, and you never see him do a
He
fucking
doesn't do
thing. The
anything.
one
He's just
thing of
right.
work you see is Wendy fucking fixing doing the boilers for like 5 seconds before she starts hearing Jack screaming in his nightmare at his chair. It's just like I love those little motifs that like aren't really motifs, but they come up in some movies, and you're just like, oh, that's a really cool aspect.
Yeah. It seems like the remake is just taking the dancing to a whole nother
Yeah,
aspect of the movie.
yeah.
That's something, if we can talk about that real quick, is just that how different of a movie it looks like. And I remember, I'm not sure if it was,
For the best. For the best,
yeah,
it's
you
different.
just, rather than trying to remake the same thing. I can't remember. I think it might have been the same article where the screenwriter of the remake was mentioning how he didn't really particularly like the first one or the original. But yeah, that they set out to make a different movie, not altogether, but it's just from the same idea of Suspiria. You know, it's not a direct remake by any means. It's just taking the concept of it, the aura, maybe not necessarily the visual aesthetic, but the kind of mood that it creates, and then creating a story around it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean-
whereas this one doesn't necessarily have a story. Have I said that before? Have I said that yet?
Oh boy. You know, you wanted to do this movie for so long.
Yeah.
And then I'm just realizing it's because you're hyped for the remake.
I am hyped for the remake. I am. But I mean, I had seen stuff from this, like stills and you know, GIFs and stuff, like just like, or little montages. Like I've seen a lot of this movie before. It looks amazing, and it does look amazing. It's just not what I was expecting. I gotta go into these movies with fewer and fewer expectations. as with most things in life, I feel like if you don't have expectations, you're prone to enjoy it more.
Yeah, less room to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fair. When I picked Suspiria, I was like, let's see what he thinks. Let's see. Every movie we do is a little test.
Yeah.
For you being the one learning about all that.
Guinea pig. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's what you are.
Basically, you're doing like shock tests on me.
Yeah. Susie Banion's. If you want me to relate it to a movie you like, she's almost like a Laurie Strode within the situation.
Where the fuck is Laurie? Who's Laurie Strode?
Halloween.
Jesus. Okay, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. How?
They're both very level-headed. They're both very strong-willed, but like they're not over-the-top characters. I really pulled a lot of like Laurie from Susie's performance.
No,
they both play them.
No way.
The same way.
She's the least clueless, man.
And
she's incapacitated for so much of the movie because they're feeding her like the drug food.
Right, but she's never over the top. She's never the one. She's never like screaming and crazy. She's
Laurie's strong as shit.
Yeah, but so is Susie. Susie just
at
keeps
the end
going
she stabs
forward.
And that's it. She runs away.
Different genre of film. Different subgenre.
I don't know. I just don't see the connection.
Okay.
You tried though.
I don't know. I see it. Very much so.
Yeah. Laurie Strode. How did I fucking forget that? It's a long day.
So, is there anything else you wanted to add about this movie, dude?
Dudette. Let's see. Deuterino works too.
Yeah, Deuterino. Brosifus.
I don't know. Is there anything I want to add? I do want to watch because I didn't get to with commentary. Maybe get some more insight. I do want to watch any special features or all the special features that you did get to see because you're a fiend. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is. I watched it. I did it. I've seen it. I know what it is. Maybe I'll rewatch it again. I'm not in any rush. Although I gotta say, I feel like Demons. I want to rewatch that one. I don't know. I think I enjoyed that movie more a little bit because it has more action going on, especially at the end. crazy ending of the movie.
All you need is a motorcycle and a sword. You know what I mean? It's like Pavlov's dog. It's just Bava's motorcycle. If it's there, it's gonna get used.
Is that that's more Chekhov's gun.
Why did I say Pavlov's dog?
Pavlov's dog just makes the dog.
I don't know, name and then
slobbers.
Yeah, let's do that. What's the thing? Oh, that's with a bell.
Yeah,
right?
It just starts.
Let's redo that.
Look, you know what? That's your Laurie Strode thing. All right, you and I both had brain farts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Done. No, I'm good. I'm good. Suspiria, good movie. Watch it. Watch it for your cinematography course.
No, watch it because it's a great fucking movie.
Watch
and
it
because
if you
love
wanna...
horror.
Oh boy.
And because it's probably more available now than it's ever been. So.
And watch it before the new one.
Yeah.
I think it's worth. Well, you should have you should have watched the movie already before you listen to this episode. We gotta. You guys. You're supposed to do that. You're supposed to be watching the movies with us.
Too.
Yeah. Like when we announce the next movie, you're supposed to go watch it. So that's a lesson to you guys.
Yeah. Well, what's the next one, buddy? It's your choice again.
What's next? Well, yeah, I decided a little bit late last second. I was picking between a couple of movies.
We've been running this for about 49 minutes. You chose about 51 minutes ago.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's right. All right. So this movie came out pretty recently, as in like literally last year, 2017. This is an anthology movie.
One of my favorite, like little kind of, I guess, a subgenre within itself.
You like anthology movies?
Love an anthology movie.
It's like strictly horror anthology movies, or just
no, in general.
Yeah.
Like
Creepshow.
I mean, Creepshow. Yeah, if you want to talk
that
horror.
Creepshow. Love Creepshow. Yeah, 2017 anthology of female directors, like women directors. Not all of them necessarily just directors, because one of them is Saint Vincent.
Woohoo!
This is XX.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that is available on Netflix. Still, we just checked, so it's definitely true.
Yeah.
So you can go watch that, and watch it before you listen to the next episode.
Yeah, it's a short one, right? Hour 20 something.
I think, hour 20.
Yeah, hour 20, man.
Go support, women behind the camera.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless of the content. But okay. So, before we even get to like the regular plugs, I just want to say by the about a day or two after this comes out, head to our YouTube channel, check out our first like real true YouTube video on our earliest horror memories. That's going to be coming out pretty soon. And you can always find us on our social media. We are on Twitter at good_suffering. We are on Instagram at Good Suffering Podcast, and we are on Facebook at Good Suffering: a Horror Podcast. And don't forget to like and subscribe and review and
comment.
Comment.
Yeah, review, comment, same thing.
Yeah, depending on where you are.
Yeah.
And thank you once again. This has been Good Suffering.